So today we're dealing with one of the most common questions I get, and that is how much practice is enough, which goes right along with how long until I get good or how should I practice. All of that stuff we're going to get to. First thing I want to address is how long till I get good. That is measured not in numbers of years that you've been playing piano or numbers of months that you've been taking lessons or who your instructor is. It's pretty much boiled down to this: numbers of hours of focused practice. That's it. People who have practiced for, focused practice for 100 hours all are about at the same level. The majority of piano students out there is a bunch of people who have practiced, focused practice for, let's say, 20 hours, and they're looking at people who have focused practice for 200 hours, and they're going, man, that person's really good and I'm not good. I guess I'm not as talented as they are, whatever. And that person who's practiced for 200 hours may be 5 years old, they may be 50 years old, they may be 80 years old. It doesn't matter. If you got that much time under your belt of focused practice, then you're going to be about that good, and you're going to be better than everybody else who hasn't practiced as much as you. So keep that in mind. Your age plays no role in how good you are. Your instructor, who your instructor is, plays no role in how good you are. Almost none at all. It's all about how much have you focused practiced, right? And of course, focused practice being really actually trying to get better, not sitting here playing songs that you enjoy, right? This is stuff that you're practicing always. The stuff that you know, plus one little extra little step out there. So there's this world of music out there that you'll never get to the end of. And you're starting out right here at the very beginning. You just want to get that very first step in. And then that's always what you're practicing, right on the edge of, how much there is out there, right on the edge of how much there is out there and how much you know. So you always want to practice just right there, and that is focused practice. Just trying to take that next tiny little step. I'm at 150 hours of focused practice, and I just want to get a little bit better. So you put in 1 extra hour or an extra 5 minutes, whatever it is. Get in that extra little time and just try to get that little bit better, as opposed to sitting down and playing that same song that you love and that your friends think sounds cool, right? So one of the most common pieces of advice from piano teachers is that you need to practice regularly, right? 30 minutes a day, or 20 minutes a day, or 10 minutes a day, or 2 hours a day, right? And you need to make sure you practice every day, because I've heard this a million times, that 20 minutes of practice every day is better than 5 hours of practice at the end of the week. What I'm going to tell you is get in whatever time you can. If I were you, I would leave your music open on your piano, whatever it is that you're working on, that next little tiny step, whatever it is that's difficult for you at this point. Leave that open on your piano so as you're walking by, if you can get in 10 seconds of practice, get in 10 seconds of practice. You don't even have to sit down. Every little bit is going to help, as long as you are, again, working on something that is difficult for you and not that song that you always play every time you sit down at the piano. And I'm also going to say that especially if you can't practice regularly, if you can't practice 30 minutes a day, which is great, I don't want to downplay that at all, but if you can't practice every single day, the best times to practice are right after your lesson or right after you go to a concert, because that's when you're most inspired and you're going to be the most focused, right? You're going to get the most out of your practice time. And then right before a lesson. So I tell my students, if you can't practice all week, at least get in, be sure to get in 10 minutes of practice when you get home from your lesson. Get in 20 minutes of practice, whatever you can. Cram it in right after your lesson, because you're going to make the most progress. You're going to be able to put into practice everything that you've been working on. And then the day before your lesson, the day of your lesson, that's going to be really great focused practice too, because you're about to embarrass yourself in front of someone who's really good at piano. So you're going to be very, very intensely focused. Those are probably going to be the 2 most productive times that you can practice, especially if you can't practice every single day in between. Now, some of the most common mistakes that I see from students is that a lot of students, especially adult students, don't like to finish concepts. So they'll be working on something, they'll be practicing something, and they'll kind of hit a roadblock. Will have not practiced for several days, and they're just not inspired to practice that thing anymore. So they'll come to the lesson and say, I was hoping that we could work on this other thing, and they don't actually care about working on the other thing. They just don't want to work on what they're working on anymore. So my encouragement to you would be, make sure that whatever concept you're working on, that you carry it out to completion, that you feel that success, and that you can take it to your teacher and you can say, here's what I got. I really hated that. Let's do something else, but finish your concept. Another thing that I see from my students is that they'll want to rush through the concepts without practicing them the technically correct way. So let's say you've got a song where it's got two hands that are supposed to be playing two different parts. The right hand's playing and the left hand's playing this other thing. And you really want to practice just the right hand because that's the part that sounds cool, and this other thing is hard to do. It's the left hand, and if you're right-handed, that's weird anyway, and it doesn't sound cool. And so you practice both hands individually, so at least it feels like you're coming out with some kind of a product. Instead of practicing both hands, together, those are supposed to be right there, and then there, like that, and practicing it really slowly, getting a really slow song, and then trying to increase the speed on that. If you do it that way, then your brain is, and your muscle memory and all that stuff is at least putting the right pieces together. So you're learning it the right way, so you can speed up a slow, correct song instead of having a really fast, incorrect song that's no good at all, because to put both hands together is like learning an entirely new song. Another example would be like with scales, right? So we've got, with our scales, we've got all these fingerings that we're supposed to be using, tucking your thumb under and using the 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then crossing over and hitting the 3 instead of the 4, all that stuff. Students always want to just do this to get the scale out, right? So it sounds cool, but there again, like muscle memory, that's everything. So you would practice it slowly, exactly the way that your teacher showed you how you're supposed to practice it, so that your brain is training your fingers to play these things correctly. And even though it's a lot slower process, practicing it technically correctly is going to be huge. Now, with every interview that I've done with a professional musician, when I ask them, how are you practicing right now? What are you working on? In every single case, they always say, I'm working on practicing slower. So if you feel like in your practice time, things are really painstaking and really slow, you're in great company. Playing fast is like kind of the very beginner desire, the beginner goal is to be able to play stuff as fast as you can. The really great players are trying to slow down their practice, really analyze, make sure every tiny movement is exactly the way it's supposed to be, so that when you do speed it up, it's all correct and it's all just as efficient as possible. So don't worry about practicing slowly. That's what we're all going for. So practice it slowly, get it all smooth, get it all correct, and then once you got this great sounding, really slow thing, then you can speed it up, it'll sound great. And one last thing I wanted to throw in here is from a friend of mine, Tim Metz, who's a drummer, and I asked him about practice time and what he requires of his students, and I just thought it was a unique enough answer. I wanted to share it with you too. And that is he said that he doesn't tell his students how much time they should be practicing, but he's just looking for them to practice until the concept is done. So he'll give them an assignment and he'll say, however much time it takes in a day. Maybe this thing takes 2 minutes, then practice this thing for 2 minutes. Maybe it takes 3 hours, practice it for 3 hours. However long it takes, practice until that concept is done. That doesn't work at all for me, but apparently it works great for him. So maybe that'll work great for you too, to see it as opposed to numbers of minutes that you're supposed to be practicing as concepts that you're supposed to be accomplishing. Anyway, there are some ideas for ways to improve your practice time. Make sure you're putting in those hours of focused practice time. You're practicing slowly, and you'll get a lot better. Thanks a lot. Good luck. Have fun.